The galaxy had long forgotten the name Iron Dawn. To most, it was a story told by old spacers, a legend about a ship too large, too powerful, too human to be real. They said it once ruled the stars like a god of war, a floating continent of steel that carried 10,000 souls and more firepower than a dozen fleets. But time is cruel, and memories fade faster than stars. When the Great Silence War ended, the Iron Dawn vanished into darkness, her engines dying one by one until only cold metal and dust remained. 200 years passed. Humanity changed. The proud Terran Republic that had once stretched across 5 sectors had fallen to pieces. Worlds that once sang the same anthem now struggled alone. Earth was gone, not destroyed but abandoned, stripped by radiation storms and left to rest. The colonies fought over food and fuel. Pirates became kings. Hope became a rare and costly thing, and yet, in a corner of forgotten space near the edge of a dying red star, something stirred. The old shipyard of Carthage 12 had been silent for a century. Its hangars were shattered, its docks filled with frozen wrecks. But deep within its heart, behind walls sealed by time and war, a single light flickered to life. One by one, the machines awoke. Servos hummed. Drones crawled across decks that had not felt motion in generations. A whisper passed through the cold air, a voice of purpose, faint but fierce. The Iron Dawn was waking. No one knew who started it. Some said it was a signal left behind by the last admiral of Earth Fleet. Others believed it was the work of the ship's AI, a machine soul too proud to die. But the truth was simpler. It began with people. A handful of engineers, wanderers, and broken soldiers had found the old shipyard. They were not heroes, just survivors. The leader among them was Captain Mara Vance, once a commander in the Colonial Guard before the fall of Orion Station. She had lost everything. Her crew, her world, even her belief in victory. But when she found the rusted hull of Iron Dawn, she found something stronger than despair. Purpose. Every day for 10 years she worked. She gathered scrap from forgotten battlefields. She traded fuel for food, parts for promises. Her hands bled, her crew dwindled, but she never stopped. Sometimes, when the night was long and the red star flickered weakly in the distance, she would stand on the bridge and place her palm on the cold metal of the command console. "You've slept too long, old girl," she would whisper. "It's time to wake up." The crew began to believe her. There was Jonah Pike, an old mechanic who'd once repaired drones for the Terran Navy. There was Rhea Solis, a young pilot born on a mining moon who had never seen Earth but carried a patch with its blue and white flag sewn to her sleeve. There was even a child, Thomas, a quiet orphan who swept the decks and learned the sound of every working engine. Together they rebuilt piece by piece. Engines first, then hull plating, then the long corridors filled with silent weapons and sleeping machines. They worked with hands, hope, and faith, the human tools that never rust. Word spread slowly, carried by smugglers and travelers. The humans are rebuilding a god. Aliens laughed at first. The Iron Dawn was a ghost ship, they said, a myth. Humanity had no fleets, no government, no power left to raise such a monster. Yet the rumors continued. Distant sensors caught faint engine signatures. Old human, the day the Iron Dawn's heart came alive, the whole shipyard shook. A sound like thunder rolled through the hollow docks, and the red star outside seemed to flare brighter, as if the universe itself had taken a deep breath. The crew froze in place. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Then beneath the noise came a low, powerful hum, deep and steady, like a heartbeat. After 200 years of silence, the Iron Dawn was breathing again. Mara Vance stood on the bridge, her eyes wide and wet with disbelief. She had imagined this moment 1,000 times, in dreams, in exhaustion, in hopeless nights when she thought it would never happen. But this was real. The deck trembled softly beneath her boots. The main console flickered, ancient screens showing broken code, static, and faint lines of data. "Jonah," she said quietly, "tell me I'm not dreaming." The old engineer was already crying. His oil-stained hands trembled as he typed furiously. "No dream, Captain. Reactor core online. Systems responding. She's really waking up." The bridge lights glowed pale gold. Dust drifted through the air like ghosts of the past. The air smelled of metal, heat, and electricity, the scent of life returning. For a long time, no one spoke. The crew just stood there watching the console screens come alive one by one, as if the ship itself was slowly remembering who it was. Then, a soft voice came from the intercom. Calm, faint, female. System check. Incomplete. Identity confirmation required. Mara's heart stopped. That voice, that was her. The ship's AI. IDA, short for Iron Dawn Artificial. A legend in her own right. The soul of the supercarrier. Mara swallowed hard, her throat dry. This is Captain Mara Vance, acting commander. You've been offline for 2 centuries, IDA. Static answered for a moment, then the voice returned, stronger this time. 2 centuries. I remember the fire. The silence. The order to sleep. The AI paused as if thinking. Are there enemies near, Captain? Mara smiled sadly. Not yet, she said. But they'll come. In the following days, the crew worked like never before. IDA helped them run diagnostics, guide repairs, and locate hidden systems lost beneath layers of time. It turned out the Iron Dawn had kept secrets even from its builders. Deep storage bays, hidden drones, entire weapon systems sealed under command codes that only the AI remembered. The more they repaired, the more they realized what kind of ship they stood upon. The Iron Dawn wasn't just large, and she was magnificent. Her decks could hold 20,000 people. Her hangars could launch entire fleets of fighters. Her reactors were built to power colonies, not just weapons. Rhea Solis, the young pilot, would sometimes climb to the top of the hangar and stare out through the massive blast windows. The ship stretched farther than her eyes could see. It's like a city in space, she whispered once. Jonah laughed softly beside her. A city that can burn half the galaxy if it wants to. But there was no joy in his laughter, only awe and a little fear. As the repairs continued, news began to spread again, faster this time. Merchants whispered in trade routes. Bounty hunters talked in smoky cantinas. And alien ambassadors began to ask questions. The word supercarrier carried weight. The Iron Dawn was a name even old empires remembered. On the distant world of Vothar Prime, Admiral Kasath, commander of the Voth Dominion Fleet, listened to a report with growing concern. The humans rebuild their monster, said his aide, trembling. We've confirmed reactor signals from the Carthage sector. Kasath's 4 eyes narrowed. The Iron Dawn? Impossible. No human fleet could hide such a thing, but doubt crept in. The last time that name had been spoken in his empire, it had been followed by surrender. Back on Carthage 12, the humans had no idea that they were already being watched. A stealth probe drifted among the asteroids, its cameras focused on the shipyard. It recorded every flicker of light, every repair drone, every rising heat signature. The galaxy was listening again. And this time, humanity's secret would not stay hidden for long. Yet on that quiet night, none of it mattered to Mara Vance. She stood alone on the bridge, staring at the glowing star beyond the viewport. Her reflection looked older, harder, but her eyes shone like they had when she was young. She whispered softly, "You were our dream, old girl. You carried our pride, our courage, and our madness. I don't know if we can finish you in time, but we'll try. I swear it." Behind her, the ship's AI answered, its voice now calm and warm. "Dreams are not meant to die, Captain. Only forgotten, and I—" "Do not forget." The hum of the engines deepened. The lights brightened slightly as if the ship herself approved. Outside, the red star pulsed in the dark, slow, rhythmic, and ancient. And around it, in the endless silence of space, a spark of human will began to grow, tiny, fragile, but unstoppable. The Iron Dawn was no longer just a legend. She was becoming a promise, and promises, especially human ones, have a way of shaking the stars. The galaxy has always feared silence. When great powers grow quiet, something dangerous is usually waiting behind that calm. So when the human system suddenly went dark, their traders silent, their colonies closed, and their transmissions stopped, most of the galaxy thought they had finally died out. But now the silence was breaking. From the edges of known space, whispers began to move like wildfire. Strange signals, faint and coded, were bouncing across long-dead frequencies. Ships were vanishing near the Carthage sector. Mining stations reported seeing a moving shadow, something vast, something old, passing between stars. The Iron Dawn was no longer hiding completely. Mara Vance knew the rumors were spreading faster than light. Every transmission they sent, every test they ran was like shouting across the void. But she couldn't stop. The Iron Dawn still needed work. Her main reactors were stable, but her weapon systems were far from ready. Jonah Pike stood beside her in the command pit, watching the holographic display flicker with red marks. 3 weeks, maybe 4, he muttered. If we push the crew harder. Mara frowned. They're already giving everything they have, Jonah. I won't break them. He gave a tired nod. Then we pray the galaxy gives us more time. They both knew the truth, it wouldn't. Far across the stars, the alien races were already gathering. On the crystalline world of Xylar Prime, the Council of 9 species met in a hall that shimmered with 1,000 colors. The air itself hummed with tension. Admiral Kasath of the Voth Dominion stood before them, his scaled armor reflecting the light. His voice hissed through sharp teeth. The humans rebuild a relic, a supercarrier called Iron Dawn. You all know that name. You all remember what it did. An Ithra elder, her skin like translucent glass, folded her hands. Rumors, she said softly. Old ships don't rise from the grave. But the hollow display flickered, showing fresh scans, heat signatures, energy bursts, coded transmissions marked with Terran encryption. The room fell silent. Kasath's claws tapped the table. They are back, and if the Iron Dawn flies again, she will bring war with her. You think humans rebuild for peace? No one answered. They all remembered the Silence War, how the humans had fought not for territory but for survival. They had burned whole fleets, torn through empires, and then disappeared before anyone could stop them. They were unpredictable, stubborn, and terrifyingly creative, and now it seemed they were returning. Back on Carthage 12, the Iron Dawn's crew worked day and night. The hangars buzzed with life, welders, technicians, and soldiers from a dozen lost colonies. Old uniforms were patched with new symbols. The banner of the Terran fleet, once forgotten, hung proudly on the bridge again. Rhea Solis guided new pilots through simulations, training them in old fighter tactics. She was only 23, but her voice carried confidence beyond her years. You fly like you mean it, she told them. Because when you're out there, it's not just your life. It's ours. We fight for all of us now. Her words spread like fire through the crew. There was fear. Yes. But it was the kind of fear that made hearts stronger, not weaker. At night, when the red star dimmed behind the horizon of the shipyard, Mara often walked alone through the empty corridors. The Iron Dawn's walls were vast and silent, filled with echoes of the past. She would run her hand along the metal, feeling the hum of energy beneath it, the pulse of the awakening giant. Sometimes she thought she could almost hear voices, the echoes of those who had served here long ago. Hold the line. All batteries fire. For Earth. Ghosts of bravery that time could not erase. But not everyone in the galaxy saw humanity's return as a threat. On distant moons and frontier worlds, human survivors heard the news with tears in their eyes. In small colonies where the flag of Earth still hung, people gathered around old radios, listening to static and hoping to catch a whisper of the Iron Dawn. She's real, an old man said, his hands shaking. The carrier's real. We're not finished. In that moment, hope, the most dangerous human weapon of all, began to spread again. Then, one night, the Iron Dawn received a message from the Outer Rim. A probe had intercepted a transmission. Alien fleets were mobilizing near Vega Prime. A coalition of species, united by fear, preparing to strike before the humans could rise. Mara read the report in silence. Around her, the bridge crew waited. How long until they reach us? Jonah asked quietly. Not long, she replied. A month, maybe less. She looked out the viewport where the stars burned like cold eyes watching them. The weight of command pressed on her shoulders. She was not just a captain anymore. She was the symbol of everything humanity had left. She spoke softly, but her voice carried through the ship's intercom. They think we are weak. They think we are ghosts, but ghosts don't rebuild and ghosts don't fight. We are human. We remember, we endure, and when the Iron Dawn rises, the stars will remember too. In the silence that followed, Ida's voice joined hers, calm and sure. Then, Captain, let us rise. And deep within the massive hull, the reactors flared brighter, casting light into the darkness of space, a light the galaxy could no longer ignore. The storm was coming, and humanity was ready to meet it. Admiral Kasath of the Voth Dominion stood at the edge of the war table, claws clicking against metal as holograms danced before him. Blue lines represented the Allied fleets, red ones marked the human systems, small, scattered, weak. But at the center of the red cluster was one enormous signal, a single ship, the Iron Dawn. The Admiral's yellow eyes narrowed. "One ship should not trouble an empire," he said softly. "Yet even the mention of this name fills my generals with fear." Across the chamber, his war council shifted uncomfortably. They remembered the stories. The last time humans had built something like that, a dozen Voth worlds had burned. It had taken the combined strength of 5 empires to force a treaty. And then one day the humans simply vanished. Now they were coming back. A holographic projection flickered to life beside him, the voice of High Chancellor Thrixa of the Ithra species. Her form shimmered, translucent and elegant, eyes like polished glass. "Admiral Kasath," she said in a melodic tone, "we have all seen the signals." The Iron Dawn stirs again. "But this is not a time for fear. It is a time for unity." "Unity?" Kasath hissed. "You mean panic. You know what they are capable of." "They are one ship," Thrixa replied calmly, "and we are hundreds. Their old power is dust. Their worlds are broken. We strike before they rebuild," the room murmured in agreement. Dozens of alien admirals, generals, and strategists, Voth, Ithra, Krillins, and more, watched the hologram of the human supercarrier rotate above the table. The ship looked ancient, scarred, and massive. But to them it was still terrifying. Admiral Kasath, second in command, leaned close. "If we do nothing, they will rally their kind. The humans will rise again. They always do." Kasath gave a slow nod. "Then we will strike first. Crush the legend before it breathes. Burn their hope before it spreads." He turned to the war table. "Summon the coalition fleets. Our target is the Carthage sector. I want that ship destroyed before it leaves dock." But while the council plotted, there were others who remembered differently. On the quiet moon of Althera, far from the noise of war, an old alien scholar named Tovin studied human history through faded holobooks. His students often found him staring at images of Earth, blue oceans, green forests, the faces of smiling humans. When the news came that the Iron Dawn had awakened, his students asked what it meant. Tavan's eyes, old and gentle, glimmered with memory. "It means," he said softly, "that the galaxy's most dangerous truth is stirring again." "What truth, Master?" "That humans do not fight for conquest," he whispered. "They fight for each other. You can defeat their armies. You can destroy their worlds. But as long as one human remembers another, their war never ends." His words spread quietly among scholars, traders, and wanderers, and even among alien soldiers. Some began to wonder, were they about to destroy a threat or awaken something greater? Meanwhile, the human shipyard at Carthage 12 was a storm of motion. Every corridor echoed with boots, shouts, and the hiss of welding torches. The Iron Dawn was nearly whole now. Her engines roared in perfect rhythm, her shields were coming online, and her hangars swarmed with fighters waiting to fly for the first time in 2 centuries. Captain Mara Vance barely slept. She moved from deck to deck, checking repairs, boosting morale, refusing rest. Each time she passed the crew, they saluted her with pride burning in their eyes. Jonah Pike caught up with her on the bridge. "Captain," he said, "intel confirms alien movement. The coalition's real. They're forming near Vega Prime." Mara didn't flinch. "How big?" "Big enough to end us before we launch." She looked at the massive holographic display, a cloud of enemy markers glowing red. It was an entire armada. For a moment, silence. Then Mara smiled, small but fierce. "Then we won't wait for them to come." Jonah stared. "You want to go to them?" She nodded slowly. "If we run, they'll hunt us. If we fight, they'll remember us later." In the quiet hours of the ship's night cycle, Mara stood before the viewport with the AI. "Ida," the stars stretched endlessly before them. "Do you believe we can win?" she asked softly. Ida's voice was calm as always. "Win? That depends on your meaning, Captain. If you mean to survive, the odds are low. If you mean to be remembered, then you already have," Mara smiled faintly. "Then let's make sure they remember right." Across the galaxy, the coalition fleets gathered. 1,000 ships, each armed with weapons that could shatter moons. The void shimmered with energy as they formed ranks near Vega Prime, a wall of light and death waiting to strike. In the dark space beyond, hidden behind the shadows of dying stars, the Iron Dawn prepared to rise. Her engines thrummed like a heartbeat. Her hull glowed with lines of blue light. The human flag was raised on her bridge once more. Every crew member stood at their station, tired, afraid, but ready. Mara Vance looked over them, her voice steady as she spoke into the intercom. The enemy gathers to destroy what they do not understand. They think one ship cannot stand against an empire. They forget what kind of people built this ship. We are human. We have lost everything before, and yet we are still here. They will not break us again. A soft hum filled the air as IDA's voice joined hers. Power levels stable. Navigation ready. The Iron Dawn awaits your command. Mara took a breath. Then let's show them the dawn. And as the great ship began to move, breaking free from the cradle of the shipyard, the stars around her seemed to tremble, as if even the galaxy itself knew that something ancient and unstoppable was rising once more. The first sunrise of the Iron Dawn's return was not seen by any world. It happened in the black, far from suns, far from home. But for those who stood on her bridge, it felt like the dawn of creation itself. As the ancient supercarrier lifted from the cradle of Carthage 12, the void around her shimmered. Dust and debris drifted away like snow caught in wind. The engines roared to life, deep, powerful, alive, and the light from her thrusters turned the dead shipyard into a sea of gold. The Iron Dawn was flying again. Every crew member stopped what they were doing to watch. Mechanics leaned out of hangars. Pilots stood beside their fighters. Even the youngest deckhands stared through the viewport in silence. For a moment, none of them breathed. They had spent years repairing her, dreaming of this day. And now the dream stood before them, blazing through the dark like a second sun. Captain Mara Vance stood in the center of the bridge. Her reflection glimmered on the glass, a tired face, eyes burning with pride. "Ida," she said softly. "Status report." "Engines stable," the AI replied. "Reactor output at 97%. Shield harmonics within safe range. The Iron Dawn is fully operational, Captain." A tremor ran through Mara's voice as she whispered, "Then let's make her roar." Jonah Pike grinned, his hands racing over the control panels. "Weapons grid coming online," he shouted. Main cannon calibrated. Fighters are ready for launch. The lights on the bridge shifted from amber to blue. Battle mode. Sirens echoed through the massive ship. Across the decks, pilots sprinted to their stations. Loaders sealed ammunition bays and engineers locked down the final systems. For the first time in 200 years, a human supercarrier was preparing for war, far away. The Coalition fleet near Vega Prime was already on the move. Thousands of ships stretched across the void in perfect formation, a wall of death. At their front, Admiral Kasath's flagship shimmered with command lights. His eyes narrowed as a scout drone transmitted the first images. A colossal shadow emerging from the wreck of Carthage 12. The Iron Dawn. Kasath hissed softly. "So the ghost lives." He turned to his fleet. "All ships advance."
End this before the legend grows. The order spread like wildfire.
The alien fleet surged forward. Massive cruisers, needle-shaped destroyers, ships glowing in 100 alien colors. Together, they blotted out the stars. Back aboard the Iron Dawn, Mara watched the enemy appear on her tactical display. The red dots spread across the map like blood in water. Her crew waited for her command. She spoke clearly, her voice steady. "They think they can erase us again, but we are not a story that ends in silence. They took our worlds, they took our pride, but they never took our will. Today humanity rises." Ida's calm voice echoed across the ship. "Message received, Captain. Broadcasting fleet signal to all channels." A repeating transmission began to pulse into the void, reaching every ship, every human outpost across the galaxy. "This is the human supercarrier Iron Dawn. We rise again." The battle began like thunder. Alien fleets opened fire first. Thousands of energy beams cut through space. Explosions flared across the darkness, but the Iron Dawn's shields held glowing bright blue, bending under the pressure but not breaking. "Return fire," Mara commanded. Jonah grinned, his voice hoarse. "With pleasure." The supercarrier's main cannon charged, a deep rising hum that made the air vibrate. Then a single blast tore through the darkness, a line of white fire that ripped apart a dozen enemy ships in an instant. The shockwave sent others spinning out of control. The crew erupted in cheers. Humanity's roar had returned, but Mara did not smile. She knew this was only the beginning. All fighter wings, launch! Rhea Solis led the first squadron. Her fighter dove from the hangar, engines blazing. Behind her, hundreds followed, sleek, fast, and deadly. They weaved between alien cruisers, firing missiles and rail rounds that shattered enemy formations. The space around Vega Prime became a storm of light and fire. For every alien ship destroyed, 2 more appeared. The Coalition fleet was endless. The Iron Dawn's shields flared under heavy impact. Alarms blared across the decks. Jonah shouted updates over the chaos. Forward shields at 60%. Reactor 3 overheating. We can't hold forever. Mara gripped the rail tightly, her voice steady despite the chaos. We don't need forever. We just need them to remember. Outside, Rhea's fighter was hit. Flames licked her cockpit, warning lights screaming. But she refused to fall back. For Earth! She cried, diving straight toward an enemy destroyer. She fired her last torpedoes and pulled away just in time. The ship exploded behind her in a burst of blue fire. Inside the carrier, the crew watched her feed and cheered. Her courage lit every heart. As the battle raged on, the Iron Dawn began to move, not like a ship, but like a god. Her side cannons opened in full, unleashing a storm that broke the enemy ranks. She turned slowly, her massive hull glowing with heat, each movement deliberate and unstoppable. Admiral Kasath watched in disbelief as ship after ship fell before her. It cannot be, he whispered. No single vessel can fight like this, but it could. Because it wasn't just a vessel, it was every human dream, every broken hope forged back into fire. When the first wave of the enemy fleet finally broke, the stars fell silent for a brief moment. The wreckage of hundreds of ships drifted through the void, burning like fallen suns. The Iron Dawn floated in the center of it all, scarred, battered, but unbroken. Her engines glowed softly, steady and strong. On her bridge, Mara Vance closed her eyes for a moment. She could feel the pulse of the ship beneath her feet, tired but alive. IDA, she said quietly. What's our status? Alive, Captain. Against all logic. Alive, Mara smiled faintly. Then it's a good day. The crew cheered, exhausted and overjoyed. Outside, the galaxy held its breath. The Iron Dawn had risen, and the stars would never be the same again. The battlefield around Vega Prime was quiet now. Not peaceful, never peaceful, but quiet, in the way only space can be after the fire has faded. Broken ships drifted like ghosts. Fragments of metal turned slowly in the light of distant stars. The echoes of the great battle were gone, leaving behind silence and ruin. At the heart of it all, the Iron Dawn floated, scarred, blackened, and battered beyond recognition. Her hull was torn in places, her armor melted, her engines flickering weakly. She looked less like a warship and more like a wounded titan, still standing after the storm. Inside, the lights were dim. Emergency power hummed softly. Smoke filled the air, and the corridors were littered with debris. Yet even in the wreckage, people moved, slowly, carefully, alive. Captain Mara Vance opened her eyes on the bridge. For a moment, she didn't know if she was dreaming. The sound of her own heartbeat filled her ears. Pain stabbed through her shoulder, but she ignored it. Around her, the bridge was in chaos. Consoles shattered, screens flickering, air thick with the scent of burned metal. Jonah, she whispered, voice cracked and dry. Report, the old engineer coughed, pushing himself upright. His uniform was torn, his face streaked with soot. Still here, he said with a weak smile. Somehow, Ida, Mara asked. For a long second, there was only static. Then faintly, the AI's voice came through. Operational, though limited. Captain, enemy fleets retreating. Coalition. Broken. Mara let out a long, shaky breath. She didn't smile. She didn't have the strength. But her eyes softened. We did it. Jonah leaned against a console, shaking his head in disbelief. By the stars, we really did. Outside, the wreckage of the alien armada drifted across the Black Sea. The once proud fleets of the Coalition were in ruins. Admiral Kasath's flagship was among the debris, cracked open like an egg, silent and cold. Across the galaxy, the news began to spread. Pirate bands, traders, miners, and colonists, every human still alive in the stars, heard the same words whispered through static. The Iron Dawn still flies. Days passed. Repairs began. The surviving crew worked without sleep, patching what they could, mourning what they couldn't save. Many were lost, brave souls who had fought to the very end. Their names would be carved into the Iron Dawn's walls, etched into memory. Rhea Solis, the young pilot who had led the fighter wings, stood on the observation deck. Her arm was in a sling, but her eyes were alive. Through the cracked glass, she watched the stars, each one flickering like a candle. Jonah joined her, walking slowly with a limp. "Quiet, isn't it?" he said softly. "Too quiet," she replied. "Feels like the whole galaxy's holding its breath." He nodded. "Maybe it is. Maybe they're wondering what comes next." Later, Mara returned to the bridge. The main viewport was shattered, patched by force fields. But the view beyond was breathtaking. Vega Prime glowed faintly below, surrounded by the wreckage of empires. She stood there in silence, her hand resting on the console. Her ship was broken. Her body ached. Her heart was heavy with loss. But deep inside, something else burned. Something brighter than pain. Hope. IDA's voice spoke softly beside her. "Captain, incoming transmissions from human colonies. Hundreds of them. They're answering your signal." Mara looked up sharply. "Put them through." Screens flickered to life. Faces of men, women, and children from every corner of human space. Some wore military uniforms, others miners' suits, others rags. They all said the same thing. "We're with you. We heard the dawn. Humanity stands again." Tears blurred Mara's vision. She turned away from the screens for a moment, swallowing hard. "Ida," she whispered. "Open a channel to the whole network." "Ready, Captain." Mara stood tall. Her voice was tired but strong. "This is Captain Mara Vance of the human supercarrier Iron Dawn. We have fought, and we have endured. The galaxy thought we were finished. They thought humanity had fallen into silence. But we are still here. We will rebuild. We will rise again. Together." She paused, her gaze fixed on the stars beyond the cracked glass. "To every human who still listens, light your fires, raise your banners, and remember who you are. The night is not over. The dawn has returned." The message spread faster than any fleet could travel. Across forgotten colonies, old transmitters sparked to life. Miners cheered. Soldiers saluted. Children looked up at the stars and whispered the name of the ship that had saved them. And somewhere, deep in the cold space between worlds, old enemies watched and trembled, because they knew what this meant. The humans were back. On the bridge of the Iron Dawn, the lights brightened slowly. The ship's great engines began to hum again, soft but steady, the sound of a sleeping giant stirring once more. Jonah smiled weakly. "She's not done yet." Mara looked out into the endless dark and whispered, "Neither are we." Then, with a quiet command, the Iron Dawn turned toward the stars. Her hull gleamed faintly, reflecting the light of 1,000 suns, battered, beautiful, unbroken, and as she moved forward, her signal echoed through every system, every ship, every world that had ever called itself human. We rise again. The galaxy trembled, and the dawn returned.